Craig.
Hello
Wait,
and
Craig.
welcome. Oh, okay. All right, attempt number 2. Hello and welcome to Distance Socialization, DS for short, a California-based podcast created by a 5-man group of boba and tailgating enthusiasts. We all shared Japanese class in high school, and now we're sharing conversation after 4 years of college. My name is Sean, the host. Joining me today are 2 of our core members.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Quill.
And once again, I am Sean. The question on the floor is, what is the question on the floor? Kyle.
What do you guys think of like sarcasm? Do you
I mean, I employ it heavily, but I don't know if that means I like it.
I don't know, do you think it's funny or like
I mean, it's
'Cause I
not
feel-
like ha funny, but
Mhm.
it's a subtle humor, you know.
I
don't know.
Mhm.
What's your opinion?
I feel like if anything it's like it denotes like sassiness instead of like funny. Like being funny. Like it's not like my type of like comedy, I would say. But I honestly don't know like if anyone finds like sarcasm like super funny or like has there been like use of sarcasm that's been funny.
I guess what is the technical definition of sarcasm?
Let me Google it.
It just says the use of irony to mock or convey contempt. I feel like actually irony is a very like core part of my humor, you know?
Mhm.
Is I feel like most of the time I like when I'm in a conversation, like the things I say that laugh are because I like take something someone says and then twist it or like take it to an extreme in kind of an ironic
Mhm.
way, I suppose. I don't know if that's necessarily sarcasm.
Or is that hyperbole?
Yeah, hyperbole to some extent. I don't know. I can't do a good answer. I'm sure I'll do it at some point in this. So we'll keep your eye out for that.
You mean keep your ears out for that?
Yes, keep your ears peeled for that.
I think sarcasm is very important to criticism because if you can criticize something in a sarcastic way, it really shows the insanity or the strangeness behind something. So, for example, in literature, if you've ever read Animal Farm by Orwell, the ridiculousness of communism is explored because in the story the pigs take over and they want to form a new form of government, and they want to have every animal be equal, but in the end their system is the same as it was in the beginning. There's a ruling class and there's a a capitalist system. So being able to put a topic into perspective with sarcasm I think helps people that normally see something a certain way to view it in a different light and be able to think more critically for themselves.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Like the reason why I thought of like the topic of sarcasm is because I got like a message on like Messenger and they messaged me like a like something sarcastically, but there was no like indication that there was any like sarcasm in it. So do you what do you guys think of using people who use sarcasm within like instant messaging?
You have to be very careful, I think, with textual sarcasm because it leaves out so much like context, like the tone and like you know timbre of your voice, as they say. That like is like when you're like speaking with someone and they use sarcasm, and so it's very hard to distinguish from normal stuff unless you do something like some people do like the slash s. I think when I'm doing like textual sarcasm, I'll often end the sentence with an exclamation point or maybe some like happy emojis or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that seems like a great idea! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Like something along those lines. But like I don't just do it like flat out like type out a thing with no indication because it's too ambiguous.
Easy to be misunderstood. Yeah.
I kind of like to italicize mine if possible, but or make weird caps, weird, yeah, just capitalize random stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think also when you meet someone for the first time and that person is used to using sarcasm, it can be awkward too because you can't really tell if they're telling the truth or not.
Oh yes, my roommate also heavily employs sarcasm, and people always like whenever like I'm talking with people, like his girlfriend even,
Mm-hmm.
and some other people are like I can never tell if you're like serious or not, and I really don't get it because to me, I guess maybe it's because I've lived with the guy for 3 years at this point, but to me, it's like the most obvious thing in the world when he's telling the truth or not. But he kind of just does like the like deadpan, like serious sounding. He'll just say something completely ridiculous, and people are like, I mean, it doesn't seem like he's lying about it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's great. We have a good friend from Berkeley who's lovably gullible, and we often have a good time convincing him of things which are just like completely false, and like obviously false, but we just say it in a very convincing manner, such that he is convinced.
Sarcasm is also a cultural thing. I think that, especially in Britain, sarcasm is really popular and
Oh yes.
widely employed. And depending on where you are in the States or who you're with,
Mm-hmm.
sarcasm can be taken or perceived in really different ways. So I think it also depends on who you're talking to or who you're messaging. Because some people get it, like Sean immediately gets his roommate's sarcasm, but of course, maybe if you were in North Dakota, people wouldn't people wouldn't be able to laugh with you. They'd kind of think, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah, that makes sense.
I feel like I chose a hard topic for us
Yeah, I
to
mean, this
speak
doesn't
on.
have to be the only topic. We can always
Yeah.
segue later. What was the aftermath of this misleading text that you received?
Well, I kind of went like, oh, okay, and then I just like carried about my day. But then it was like you said it. There was like no indication, like how you said like no exclamation marks or nothing like out of the ordinary to make you go like, oh, he's just playing with me or like, but he just sent it like normally, and I was like, huh. that was like, it's been a while since that happened, but yeah, I just found that a little weird.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right.
I
So,
guess.
question on the floor is Quill, go.
So, all of us are voting in California this election, and I don't want to get too far into politics, but I would like to discuss the propositions on the state ballot.
Hmm.
And there's certainly some interesting debate to be had over some of the measures to be introduced. I don't recall any of the numbers, so Kyler, Sean, if you could just pull something up, we can
I got my
Yeah.
ballot in front of me.
talk about it.
Then I post like a link. Yeah, here I pulled up the link.
So they start at the number 14 this year. Number Proposition 14 authorizes bonds continuing stem cell research initiative statute.
Hmm.
That one doesn't seem that controversial.
That's a yes.
Yeah. Then
15 increases funding for public schools and like community college and like other government services. And I feel like that not as controversial, I guess, for the most part.
Well, actually, 15.
Hmm.
I haven't done that much research on this because it says like taxes, properties, based on current market value instead of purchase price. And from what I understand, this is actually a very unique thing about California is that property taxes in California are charged based on purchase price and not on like the market value, like the appraised value. So once again, I haven't done actual research in this one. I kind of skipped over this one as one I need to do more research on before deciding. That's like a fairly significant change. And I think there are people who are on both sides of that because the argument is a lot of these smaller like family run businesses and so on who just happen to be in Los Angeles or I guess like the Silicon Valley would now immediately be priced out just because they can't afford like this massive property tax because their property is now worth multi-million dollars instead of the 50K they bought it for back in 1953.
That does make sense.
But I think it's also like California is like the only state that does it this way, which is there's something to say about that as well.
Hmm. I mean, just on the website, it kind of that I'm like looking at, it's not sort of gives both sides. I can't really tell like which sides it leans harder to. But it says a vote yes, property tax on most commercial properties worth more than 3 mil would go up. And then a vote no, property tax would stay the same. And yeah.
Yeah. Because this is since it was Proposition 13 in 1978 that was passed and made California that way. Based on these like supporters and opponents, it seems like this has wide support from the Democratic Party and like the I guess liberal politicians like Joe Biden, our Senator Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Green Party, Democratic Party, bunch of school districts, and the people opposing it, as these things so often are. mainly seem to be, of course, business like associations. I'm sure they don't want to do this. The Republican Party, and then some. I guess there's like a list of 3 Republican politicians here, which might be all that's left in the state of California at this point.
I think it's a great idea because the value of real estate in California has skyrocketed in the last 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so there, as Sean said, there's definitely a disparity between people that bought property in the 50s and people that are buying property now in California. And imagine if a lot of people are still just paying taxes on massive amounts of land that they bought for $50,000 that are now worth $5 million. That's a huge loss for the for state taxes. But I do understand if you were a business or someone whose income can't support the property you're living on, getting pushed out by taxes would be a real
Well,
problem.
for this at least, I think it is important to note that it does limit it to commercial and industrial properties, not residential properties.
Oh, well, then that's perfect. It will be businesses hefting the cost.
Yeah, so there still is something to say about like small, locally owned, like family businesses and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But the cap was 3 million. So, well, I guess some family-owned businesses are
In like
valued at
Yeah,
more than
'cause
3
I'm
million.
kind of thinking of there's that diner in like downtown LA, which is in the middle of like all the buildings, like what's it called? It's like a famous diner.
and where? LA?
Yeah, downtown LA. Yeah, the Pantry Cafe. That's it.
Uh-huh.
And it's just like kind of in the middle of the city, and I really kind of wonder like how much that land is worth. Because I know that place has been there. You know, my mom talks about how like her parents would like take her there as a kid when they were like working in the city or whatever. So I kind of wonder if like places like that potentially. Uh,
Imagine that though. Your diner is worth more than $3 million. Why? It's amazing that the business is still
yeah,
operating and that they haven't sold just for
Mm-hmm.
the money they get from the property.
yeah. And there it is something to say about it. You know, it being a pretty stable uh, investment for the most part. You can get so lucky with stuff like that. Like my roommate, his family bought their house in Palo Alto in like the 90s for I think like $500,000, and they sold it a couple years back for like 6 million.
Wow.
Wow.
Like very little that you could have done in that same time frame to get like that like fifth. I guess it'd be like 20-year time frame to get like 10 times return on investment.
Well, even in the past 10 years after the 2008 crash, and now uh, in 2020, the housing market in the Bay Area has at least doubled its value. I know that my parents' house in 2009 was half the value that we sold it for, and that's just in 10 years. So 20 years, I'm sure it in the next 20 years, I'm sure that houses in the Bay Area are going to be another 4 times more expensive. Just an ever increasing amount of money that's needed to live in the Bay Area.
Yes. Yeah.
But that also like I've been like with all like the rising prices, within the Bay Area or like just California in general, I've been seeing like a lot of maybe like entertainer, like YouTubers or like other people, like they're just packing up and moving to like different like states, which has a little bit more affordable cost of living.
Yeah. And with the pandemic, like it's been such drastic fact. Like I read this article from, I can't remember, it was either from like the Berkeley student newspaper, the Daily Cal, or there's the Berkeley side. I think it was Berkeley side, which is like a local news organization. They're like have this whole story about how like some like the landlords in Berkeley were like struggling,
Mm-hmm.
because like there were just no students, and they're like, oh, some of these places cut their rent literally in half from like $4,000 a month to like $2,000 a month, and they still can't get people to fill it. And so I think that is like a big impact. Although I do want to say, like, the funny thing about that article is, um, they mentioned like they had these interviews from these like property owners who were like, oh, we have like certain apartments which are more geared towards like students. They're just laid out in a different way, or like they're configured in a different way, such that like most professionals living in the area wouldn't want to live in them, but it appeals to the students. And I'm like, what they're talking about is these are like rundown, crappy apartments that like a student's going to live in for a year until they get sick of it and then move somewhere else. They're acting like, oh, we can't sell these to the professionals because they're laid out differently. It's nuts because they're like falling apart.
$4K a month.
Yeah. I mean, the rent I paid for like some of these places does not really match up with like the quality of maintenance and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even if you were living in Tokyo, $4,000 a month, that's a really nice apartment in Ginza, the what would you call Ginza? The fashionable shopping district of Tokyo. You could have an apartment on the 35th floor of a apartment tower or something. That's big money.
Yeah, I think like from everything I can tell, like Berkeley, because there's just so many students, like the housing market's like pretty terrible, like even worse than mostly the rest of the Bay Area, in terms of prices. Because like a $4,000 apartment in Berkeley versus like a $4,000 like house or apartment like down in the South Bay where I am now, the distance is like, or the difference is stark, and like how much better it is down here. I think also because they have to like, people have to want to live here like long term for these professionals working in these high paying jobs. They're not going to like tolerate a bad place, whereas students in their first or second apartment very well might.
Now I have a hypothetical. So like if you guys weren't living like in California, like where would you want to live? Like somewhere within like I guess the states. Like where would you pack up and go?
I mean, wherever it is, I need like a fiber optic internet connection. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the Midwest. I guess it's like every tech, Silicon Valley, whatever the dream is to like live in Montana or whatever.
Really?
Really?
I mean, it's I don't know. It seems, if like I'm not trying to live in a city, which is kind of why I'd be moving out, right? Then you want to go somewhere with like good nature, decent weather. Um,
Well, I mean, you can live in the city. I'm just saying, like, maybe the cost of living in California has just skyrocketed or something. Something happened,
yeah.
and you can't afford California anymore. So, like, would you want to be more in the suburbs, Sean, or would you want to be like
No, I'm telling you, this 25K like plot of land in near South Lake Tahoe.
Mhm.
I don't remember if I mentioned that when the recording was on or not, but there is a 25K plot of land that I am eyeing. I cannot afford it, and I cannot afford to build anything on it, but I am eyeing it nonetheless.
Mhm.
Have your ranch.
It's 0.3 acres, so I don't think it's quite a ranch.
Not
Ew.
quite.
Oh, you can make a Indian like restaurant, Indian food restaurant shop.
I see,
Oh,
but the
Sean's
issue
curry.
is this isn't in. This is like it's like 20, 30 minutes out of like South Lake Tahoe, and so I'd be competing with the best Indian food I've ever had in the United States, which is from this literal hole in the wall of a liquor store called Curry and Grill in South Lake Tahoe. So I think I couldn't compete, to be honest.
I
Maybe
mean,
if you're closer to Lake Tahoe, people that missed the hole in the wall can come to your curry place.
True, and like for people who want to, there's like Sierra is actually because when last time I went to Tahoe, right before all this lockdown stuff, we went skiing on a weekend. We just like went up and then left on a Friday night, came back, skied Saturday, Sunday, and then drove back Sunday night.
mhm.
And so like when we stayed the night, we went into town and got some curry and grill, but then our friends who came as well didn't want to stay. They wanted to be back, so they had like Sunday to study and do homework and so on. So they left Saturday night, and they didn't get the curry and grill. But if I had my restaurant here, they could have stopped and had the curry here without having to go the wrong way into town, get the curry, and then go the right way back.
So basically, you would be the next franchise. You can just make it like
Curry and grill too.
Curry and Grill 2, which is more like en route for some of the travelers.
So good.
Perfect
Curry
business
and grill.
scheme.
I really want curry and grill now.
For the listeners, like Sean is I would say a pretty good expert within like Indian like cuisine. He has had and made a lot of like Indian food, right, Sean?
I dabble, I suppose.
Just
He
being
makes a
too
mean
modest.
curry.
It is pretty good.
Yes.
Did I have your
think,
naan too, or no?
I think I made naan when you came. I don't think there was naan when Quill had my curry.
No, we
I
were
think it was
eating
just
on the
rice.
beach.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Where would you live, Kyle?
I'm thinking of like maybe like somewhere in Texas, like Austin or something, or maybe like here, like the
So
property,
hot.
like in like Vegas, like you can
Vegas.
like the houses you can get for like in Vegas is pretty good, and then isn't there like the property tax like so much lower in like Nevada/Vegas?
Yeah, and there's no state income tax in Nevada.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd want to live around Vegas though. I've known people who've lived in Vegas, and it just hadn't seemed appealing to me.
It's so hot in the summer, Kyle.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's
So
a
very
desert.
hot.
Like, yeah.
Hey, but that means like I can just afford like good air conditioning with all the money I'm saving, right?
I mean, I guess that's like the excuse of everybody who lives in Arizona until their air conditioner breaks in the summer, and they call my mom at 2 a.m. complaining because it's 105 degrees at 3 a.m.
Is that what your mom does?
That is what she does. Yes.
I never knew that. I thought she was just a professional Pokemon Go player.
What I thought
She
too.
does that.
But Kyle, if you
Hmm.
lived in Vegas, you'd be gambling a lot, right?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
Like, I feel like yes, I would be gambling like slightly more than if I wasn't living in Vegas. But I'm also like I'm still very frugal with my money, so like like when I lose, like I like when I lose money, it still kind of hurts, and then I'm like, so I feel like at some point, like I'll just stop because I lost money, too much money, or like enough money.
Would you have like a weekly budget, like
Oh, I definitely
$10 a
would not
week?
go weekly.
No,
Like
quarterback
I
probably.
don't
You
even
would
get
go
like scratchers
daily.
weekly. I would go like I don't know. It would I feel like it would be like me and drinking like now. Like I only drink on like special occasions. So like say if you guys were out there and it's your birthday, I guess, and we go gambling, then I will spend like money to gamble cuz it's a special occasion. So I guess for typically on special occasions, I will like gamble if I was out in Vegas for entertainment.
Everything in moderation, right?
Yeah.
Even moderation.
Moderation in moderation. I think I'd like to live outside of Portland in the
Mm.
mountains. Portland, Oregon, not Maine. Maine's too cold for me.
Oh, that's like something I would also want to experience, like living in a state where it like snows.
Really?
I
From
ca-
everything I've heard, is the snow is great to visit, not to live in.
Yeah, it sounds like a nuisance.
But my cabin in Kybers, California, there will be snow, so I guess I got to get used to it.
I think it would be like just super interesting to live up or have maybe like I don't know, live a couple years with like having snow.
Yeah,
Learn how
Just
then have to
to
because
get a
shovel a
snowblower.
driveway.
I kind of like
Yeah,
the colder weather, so I'm like, oh,
I do like the cold a lot as compared
and
to
then I
the
could just
not
like
cold.
eat a bunch of like hot things.
Spicy.
Like I'm like
Some
Spicy.
curry.
some hot
Yeah.
pot, some curry. That just sounds amazing.
I can't. I used to like the cold, but I spent a year in the Philippines, and now even the slightest chill, I have to wear jeans and put a jacket on. I've gotten too used to the heat.
I don't know. I can't. I think I'm fine in the heat. It's just when it gets too humid, that's when I can't deal with it.
So you can buy an industrial scale dehumidifier, and then you also at that point don't need, you can be off the grid, have your own water source from that dehumidifier.
Exactly.
I visited Florida once. Like I don't know how long ago, but it was during the summer, and it was so humid that
Yes.
it was like I don't know. It was so weird to breathe the air there. I knew like whenever like we went into like a store or something, like it was just so refreshing because the air was like not humid. It
I've
was
also heard that Singapore is kind of like that.
Oh, Singapore is so humid. Oh my god.
Have you been, Quill?
Yeah, I was in Singapore in December, so technically winter, but even so, just stepping outside, humidity is enough to soak your shirt in no time.
Wow. So how humid does it get in like Japan, Quill, for you?
When I was living in Yamanashi Prefecture, after it rained, it would be 100% humidity for about a day in the summer. So the mountains just kind of trap this bubble of humid air, and with the sun shining, it's kind of like an oven.
Oof.
Like I think Yamanashi is one of the hottest prefectures to live in Japan. So it's pretty brutal in July and August, but it's something you get used to. And I think a lot of people complain, but I find the heat refreshing. Maybe that's just me.
I don't know. I from my experiences, I think like the heat is more taxing than refreshing.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of the cold.
But what are like some of the things you would do? Like, of course, like there's stuff, or what are some of the things you guys do to like escape the heat? If it
Well,
was,
luckily right now I have air conditioning, so I just
Mhm.
stay inside and don't dare to go outside or touch the window because the windows are really warm.
Mhm. I
When I
think.
was
Oh,
Go ahead,
you go.
Kyle.
Oh, so for I don't know. I don't know what's wrong or what's up with my house, but we have air conditioning on like half of the house. So like the upper level, we have air conditioning, and then the lower level, we don't for some reason. I'm not sure why. Or maybe we just do it up in the upper half. But I think I kind of just for the most part deal with like the heat because I just stay down here on my PC taking care of my dog. Um, Sometimes I'll get an ice pack and like put that on my back for a little bit. But that's about it. Oh, and if we have watermelon, I'd cut up the watermelon, or if I already had cut it up, I would eat watermelon.
It's the best food for the beach. You've been
Ooh,
swimming around all day. Just soak up the watermelon, rehydrate.
that's so good.
Yes, I have fond memories, not of, I mean, I guess, of like lake beaches and watermelons from my childhood. So we didn't really go to the real beach that much because it's cold in the Bay Area.
And the beaches here kind of
Yeah,
well,
we don't have,
well, the
there's like a couple
closer
sandy
ones.
beaches, but a lot of them are just kind of rocky.
Hmm.
When I was in the Philippines, it was so hot every day. My dorm didn't have air conditioning, so all of us would buy fans and plug them in and just have fans blowing on us 24/7, even when we slept. So if you ever walked by the dorms at night, you would just hear fans, just kind of like maybe if you were walking inside a data center in Google and there's just all these computer fans, just a surprising amount of noise coming from the dorms that's not people talking, it's just fans whirring. Air conditioning's better. Highly recommend.
Yes, and it's very nice, but it's very expensive and probably not that great for the environment.
True.
uh, I weep sometimes looking at these power bills for like the last couple of months. Luckily, I don't think air conditioners actually like kicked on like the last like week or two, just because it's been like cool enough.
It's sad that using air conditioning costs so much money, but
Yes,
what can you
it,
do
it,
sometimes?
yeah. And it's like, what do I make money for if not to make my life more comfortable?
True. I mean, end game now is to retire. How can
Yes.
we retire early?
No air
Gotta do the
conditioning.
Mega Backdoor Ultra XD 360 no scope Roth IRA,
Hmm.
I
Does
think it's like, oh, sorry.
the Roth IRA is the one where taxes are taken out before?
Yeah, before you put money in.
Okay.
I thought that
There's like,
was with the after. Oh, is that just 401k is after?
or sorry, it's yeah, no, never mind. Put it. Taxes are taken before you put money in. You put in money after taxes are taken.
Wait. Repeat that, Sean.
So I mean, I got kind of tripped up myself for a second, but with the Roth IRA, taxes are taken before you put the money in, which means the money you put
Mm-hmm.
in has already had tax taken out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you take money out of the Roth IRA, you do not get taxed additionally on it.
Hmm. And then 401k is just the opposite, right?
Well, I mean, there's like traditional and Roth 401ks as well. So you can do 401ks that are Roth 401ks.
Ah.
And then there's also the Mega Backdoor Roth, which is a tax avoidance, not evasion, because it's legal scheme that you can do. And it
I
sounds
like how you still
ridiculous.
use the word scheme.
It is a scheme, and
Ah.
I don't know if it should be legal, but the IRS says yeah, it's legit. It's like there's like these loopholes, which are obviously just like they like for like the normal IRA, they say you cannot, or the Roth IRA, they're like you can't have a Roth IRA if you make more than it's like 100 and something thousand a year or
Mm-hmm.
95K, so somewhere around that range of money a year. You can't have a Roth IRA, just normal IRA, which has like a I think $5,000 a year limit that you can add to it. But what you can do is you can make a traditional IRA and then just immediately convert it into a Roth IRA after you put money in it.
What?
Yes. And that
And
is called regular backdoor Roth IRA. It is not to be confused with the mega backdoor Roth IRA. The names are ridiculous.
what is
So the
the
mega, how is it different from the normal backdoor?
Well, so the mega one is you use a 401k, and it depends on like who your employer is, and what your 401k plan is, if you can even do it. But basically, you like max your 401k, so you contribute the 19,500 you can a year, and then you
mm-hmm.
put additional money into it, and then any money in your 401k you can transfer into a you can pay the taxes on it and transfer without a penalty into a Roth IRA. Um, and so you can just put $10,000 in to your 401k after like after you meet the cap, and then
Mm-hmm.
convert that 10K into a Roth money.
I see.
That's not
And
taxable still, right?
no, I mean, but you don't pay extra taxes.
Ah, I see.
I mean, I think when you're doing the after, I think the money you put in once you cap out is already taxed anyway.
Hmm.
Yes.
And all this is legal, right?
Yes. And if you want to retire early, then I think that's what people do often, because it allows you to put a lot more money into like the Roth IRAs, which as long as the market goes up, then you make a lot of money that is not taxed.
So
I see.
the Roth IRA, is the money in that account invested into stocks, or is it just
Yeah,
an interest based?
yeah. it's invested, like, it depends on like what plan you have, but it's invested into stocks generally, and it depends too, because I think you can choose different allocations. You're like, I want, and it does change, like, because usually what you do is you choose like a managed fund, and you say, oh, I want to retire in 2045, and so then they kind of manage the risk for you, so they'll change the allocations between like stocks and bonds, and like domestic stocks and international stocks to like essentially limit your like it's like when you're older, you don't want, like when you're younger, you can like weather like fluctuations in the stock market. But if you're older, let's say we're retiring in 2007 or 2008, you don't want to have all your money in the stock market, because then it crashes and then you got to go back to work. By the time you're looking to retire, you should have your money into less fruitful but more stable investments.
Understandable.
Yes.
So the dream is to move out of California to somewhere in South Lake Tahoe, or
I don't know what the dream is. I mean, like, definitely not now, but like eventually, I could see like a nice cabin with high speed internet being a good place to be. I don't know how good the internet is in Kybers, California, though.
maybe not fiber optic.
No, most likely not. It honestly might be like satellite.
I mean, maybe at like by the time you retire, Sean, it might be fiber optic, but that might be obsolete at that time. Who knows?
I think fiber optic is actually mostly future proof.
Is it?
Yeah, because the way it works is they send like light over these things, and essentially they can just shine a different color of light and then split it out with the prism,
Mm-hmm.
and then like the light doesn't interfere with each other too much, and so you can have like multiple signals on the same wire doing that for like some ridiculous amount of like stuff. Because you think like the stuff that goes under the ocean to connect, like, the US to Europe, they just have these like thick fiber optic like bundles that they throw down there, and they threw those down there like a long time ago, and I think they do add more every now and then and stuff like that, and maintenance and whatnot. But it has satisfied the need. I've never heard of the America to Europe internet tube is blocked up today because too many people are trying to watch Netflix from the UK.
It's hard to beat the speed of light.
Yes. If you figure it out, you should tell me, because then we can like go back in time and do fun stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, get the winning lottery ticket numbers, and then that's the best way to retire early.
Yes, retire in 1863.
Ooh.
Retire real early.
Maybe after the Civil War.
I didn't say in the US.
I
think if it's 1863, you'd want to be probably somewhere in Europe, to be honest, right?
Not in London, but yeah, I'd love to be in Austria.
Yeah.
Go to the mountains, retire. But not Japan. Have to wait until 1868.
Yes. And then you can have a movie written about, or a book and movie written about you as you become a samurai.
Exactly.
All right, I guess. Do you guys have anything else to say, or like?
I think let's spare Ben the pain. I think this is probably an appropriate length for him to edit.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Distant Socialization. I hope to catch everyone next week. Bye.
Yeah. This is Sean signing off.
2, 3, 4.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah. And we might have a more complete cast next week. Who knows?
Who knows?